Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. Well, my guest today is the author of the best-selling book, Brownies for Breakfast. Unfortunately, not what you think. I was very excited when I saw that title. Lynne Bowman has been featured at Women's Expos. She's won national awards as a creative director. She's worked as an actress, a makeup artist, a screenwriter, an illustrator, a legal journalist, and she is a self-proclaimed the worst television weather person ever. At 80, she has lived quite a dynamic life, and I'm just so excited to hear all about her journey. So welcome, Lynne.
I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm lying just a little bit about my age. I will be 80 before too long. So I'm saying I'm in my 80th year because I like the sound of it.
I would have never guessed you were in your 80th year. But you have lived quite a life. And I always go back with people, and we don't have to go way back, but let's talk about, you've done, and I feel like that's women. If you look at my resume per se, I've done a lot of different things and a lot of really fun things. So go back and, I say they always kind of stack up, and that's how we got to where we are today. So what was kind of your core?
We did not have a plan. There was no plan to be had. I graduated from high school in 1964. So let that sink in. What kind of a year was that? What was going on? Well, it was a war zone in LA where I was. And, for women to have a plan, there was no plan. You were going to get married and have some kids and have his life and their life. That was our life. And I want to follow that up by saying I desperately wanted to have children. I wanted to be married. And I'm so glad that I had the children, and they're now in their late 40s, I'm happy to say, and they've survived, and they're wonderful. The marriage thing was not quite such a slam dunk. I eventually got it right, but it took some tries, and we were so naive about relationships, and so no one talked about any of that, and no one discussed whether or not you were ready or you were happy or what your future would be. My future, it was some guy. That was my future.
You were Mrs. John Doe.
Somebody, right?
Yeah,
and
that was your idea.
At the time, I thought, okay, well, whatever. But as a result, when we actually did start our careers, and boy, I sure did. And it ended up being the thing I've told my daughters. Actually, in some ways, the career is the love of your life. Not that you might not meet a partner who is also a love of your life, but with any luck, you hit the dirt enough times. You go down in splendid fashion enough times that you learn enough that you really find fun stuff to do. I don't think you find it typically the first or second time out. I think you have to take some wrong turns. I think you learn, with every professional experience that you have, or or totally non-professional experience that you have, it's all good. And so in retrospect, I'm not cranky about not having had a plan. It was maybe best that I didn't, because boy, I had some interesting stuff happen.
You did some really cool things.
I did. Yeah. And I'm still doing, and that's what we're talking about. I am still, and we grew up being told that being over 70, the covers of magazines were always what to do over 30, over 40, over 50, ... Yeah. And then nothing, right? Like, well, girl, it's over. In fact, my life has been so much more fun, more interesting, more satisfying after 50. And I hear this from my crustiest girlfriends, it's so wonderful not to be prey anymore.
Right. And I've interviewed over 100 women now, and we kind of don't care what people think anymore. And it's like, I have an idea. And I find that most women this age are doing things with purpose and with passion. And that's what really matters. It's not about the money. It's not about them per se. It's just, what are they doing to change the world? And that's what's so amazing about this demographic, these women over 50. And the older they get, the better the stories, the more they're doing. It's just so inspiring. You're my second almost 80 and my 80th year guest. And the last one started writing books in her 70s. It was like, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
it's exciting. So when you look back, what was your favorite thing that you did? And you're going to have to tell the weather person story, because I read about that. It was pretty darn funny.
Well, the way things were back then, I met a guy at a horse show. He said, "What do you do?" I told him kind of what I did. He said, "Oh, we're looking for somebody at the NBC affiliate in Wilmington, North Carolina, to do the news." Now, this was when Barbara Walters was the only female face in news on TV. And he said, "Send me a reel." I said, "Great." I sent him a reel. He hired me. I showed up. I showed up days before the worst storm they had experienced in North Carolina in 100 years. However, he told me instead of doing the news, as he had said I would be doing, he needed for me to do weather. Oh, really? Needless to say, I did not know dip about weather. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, but my motto then, it still is just say yes. Okay. Yeah.
Figure it out.
Whatever. Yeah. I'll do it. All right. And so I called the airport and I, did everything I could, but it was not going to turn me into a good weather person overnight or in a week. And I'm sure I looked fine, which today I guess is basically still the only thing they want. Only now it's all cleavage and short skirts and so on. And that wasn't such a thing. But I was horrible and I knew it. But also, the reason I got fired was not because I was an awful weather person. It was because, guess why? I mean, can you guess what happened when I went on my first business trip with the manager of the TV station?
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said no, which
good for you.
Occasionally I could do, so that's how I got out of there. But that led to other things. That took me to North Carolina. We were talking this morning about the Post and Coast, and I ended up working for advertising agencies there and meeting people, and then went back to LA and did newspaper work, and then and it's all about just kind of doing what's in front of you that looks like fun and looks interesting. Now, as hard as we fought for the privilege of all women to go to, in 1964, when I graduated, I couldn't go to Harvard because Harvard wasn't co-ed.
Yeah. Isn't that just everyone watching and listening, just pause for a minute. In our lifetime, there's somebody who's on here right now who couldn't go to a college maybe she wanted to go to because women weren't allowed. It's always mind-blowing to me when we really put it in that kind of perspective.
And it wasn't just Harvard, of course. It was most of the Ivy Leagues and the most prestigious. And the idea of being a physician or a lawyer, there were some females in law. There were very few in medicine, but it was an absolutely different world. When I got a notion at one point that I wanted to apply to the police department in LA. And I don't even remember what made me want to do that, but I thought, okay, PR, something that might be, but you had to be 5'7" to work as in the police department.
Even in an office within the police department?
Anywhere, 5'7", because that meant male, right? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we could go on and on about this, but you get the picture.
Yeah.
The world that I blew out into as an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old was a very different world. And it continually just stuns me. Of course, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have internet.
Computers, anything. Right.
None of that. And yet there are common threads. There are things that haven't changed at all. Also, the pill came out when I was in high school. So the whole idea of women's reproductive rights, this is still very new and difficult for people. We haven't figured out what to do about this, apparently. But people wonder why the birth rate has gone down. No one's asked me. Has anyone asked you why the birth rate has gone down?
Nope.
I have a very simple answer. When women can choose, often they do.
Right. You can stop the process and have your 1 or 2 or however many you want. And there you go. I had 2. That was it.
But not
I stopped the process.
There you go. And also, ladies, speaking now as an older person, a wise woman, when you no longer have hormones, your life becomes so much better. Until everyone talks about menopause as being this terrible thing that happens to you. Well, I think men talk about it that way more than women. I'm not sure, but where you're just no longer really a female or no longer whatever. That's such BS. I mean, when you regain full control of your body, as you will in your 50s, hopefully, it's great. It's really great. Plus, we can now use hormones on our face. And yes, with good results, I think. So bioidentical, topically applied hormones.
So this is a great segue because I want to talk about your book, and which is something I'm very passionate about too, our food and health and all the crap that's in our food. But let's talk about why you wrote the book, Brownies for Breakfast, which, as much as we would like it to be a box of Betty Crocker, we know that is not good for us. So.
No, but have you tried my brownies? Have you made my brownies?
No, I just got the recipe and I am going to try them because they look delicious. All the pictures in the cookbook look fabulous.
Thank you. I took them with my iPhone, and I did that specifically because I wanted you to know that your brownies were going to be as pretty as my brownies. No stylist was harmed in the making of this book. But that's very purposeful because we've always been presented with this, look what Martha Stewart can do with a jar of mayonnaise, right?
Right.
And yeah, Martha Stewart plus a lighting crew, a stylist.
I was going to say, plus a crew of 10 can make that mayonnaise look fabulous.
Yeah. So no, this book, okay, where do I start? It's written.
Let's talk about why you wrote the book.
Because I'm diabetic. I'm type 2 diabetic and have been most of my adult life. I found out, like many of you will find out, if you haven't already, with gestational diabetes. I had a 10-pound boy, and the doctors, all men, went, oh, that's another thing. Y'all young'uns, when you have babies, it's with women. Yay. We had babies surrounded by men telling us that they knew more than we did about having babies. Okay, talk about mansplaining. Anyway, I had this 10-pound baby boy, and so it was obvious that I had gestational diabetes, although they hadn't tested me for it. And then what that means is later on in life, you typically will develop type 2 diabetes in your 40s, which I did, even though no one wanted to test me for it. They kept saying, well, you're not overweight, you look fine, so don't. I got them to test. Finally, I did have type 2 diabetes. So, and because my mother had died young, my mom died when I was 18 of a chronic disease. So I didn't have to be told what it meant to a family when the mom died. And when the mom was incapacitated for a long time. It not only breaks up your family, it is with you for the rest of your life, but it breaks you financially. When I was 18, everything, my house disappeared. My dog had to be given away. My dad moved on. I literally was on the sidewalk with my luggage, and I was a freshman in college. And that part of my life was over and done with. So I was left with this really indelible image of what happens when mom is sick.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just was determined that I wasn't going to be sick. So I did the research. I asked, I read, I did, and found out that people didn't know very much about diabetes. They didn't. And what I saw in the way we were being told to eat or told what to do or what not to do didn't make any sense to me.
Right.
And so gradually, as I made more sense, as I connected with other people who were working on the issue and writing about it, and the culmination of that was in, I want to say 2019, I went to the Plantricians Conference, and the Plantricians are an international group of MDs who are very, very interested in plant-based eating and healing with food.
Yeah.
And some big names, Dean Ornish and T. Colin Campbell. So I uncharacteristically opened my wallet up and gave them a lot of money so that I could hear the people that seemed to be the best brains at the time. A lot of people talking about diabetes in that confab. So I went for, I think it was 5 days, and it was PowerPoints from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m, which, not a fun thing, but I sat through it just mesmerized because there was the data. There was all this data about food and chronic disease.
Yeah.
So, and my book was about half written. It was a lot of recipes and a lot of stuff, but that really cinched it for me. And
how old were you at this time? How long ago was this conference?
2019. So I
recent. I was going to say, because now we're talking about this and the younger generations are talking about this, and I don't think they're going to put up with it. I was going to be really surprised if you said like 2000, that was that long ago. So this is very new, relatively new.
Christina, even in 2019, nobody wanted to talk about sugar-free.
Yeah.
I mean, literally everybody's attitude was, oh, no, thanks. Like that can't possibly be okay. Because,
it's so funny you say that. I was going to a gym, probably 2019, hired a trainer. And I remember going through my diet and I was eating, let's say, fat-free pudding for a treat. And he's like, oh, why would you do that? You need to eat sugar-free. Like, get the sugar out. And it was like he was speaking another language to me because nobody was talking about sugar 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yes. And I also, boy, with every year that goes by, there's so much more coming out now, and so much more research, so many more people talking about it, but it's really very, very recent. And I think a huge advantage that I've had in my life is that I've not been eating sugar since I was in my 30s, 40s. I would cheat once in a while. And there weren't good sugar substitutes available. But for the most part, the more I read, the more I understand that it's that sugar over the years that has created inflammation in people, that has created all these other, bone ailments and things that have happened to people. Sugar. And the more you know about it, the more you understand that the American food industry puts sugar in virtually everything. And
sugar and corn. Corn's another one that isn't that good for you, and it's in everything. We had a neighbor who's allergic to corn, and you don't realize it is in everything.
Right. So my sort of golden rules are no sugar, but read the label. Read period, the period, label, period. Always read that label. And I brought my children up reading the label when we'd shop together, which we did because I had 3, single mom for most of it. And that's another thing. I really insisted on eating at home. I mean, we didn't have quite the same fast food culture when I was raising my kids. It's gotten way worse. But I absolutely still believe in table culture being a thing that creates healthy humans and better educated kids.
Everything I read about you, I'm like, oh, I am going to love her so much. I had athletes. My kids traveled and we had sports, a lot of sports. But if we were home, we were at the table. Might be that I put stuff in a crock pot in the morning. So we would have 30 minutes to, have a quick healthy meal and then get back out the door. But the things we talked about at the table, you don't get that back. You don't get that at McDonald's. You don't get that at Pizza Hut. There's something about being around your kitchen table that's just a familial camaraderie that is just really special
for you. And I'm sure you're seeing the results of that in your children. I know I am. Yeah. And the other that my superpower, if I have one, is I can throw a meal on the table in 15 minutes. People coming over, great. Boom. Because when you eat real food, whole food, mostly plants, it's easy. You've always got good food and you can throw it out there. I cheat just a little bit on processed foods. Trader Joe's has a couple things that I particularly like. One of them that I will go ahead and just suggest is they have a high protein pancake mix that I make. I slice up apples and cabbage and I make apple cabbage pancakes with the high protein. It's a meal. It's a fantastic meal and your kids will love it. My 3.5-year-old grandson thinks it's the greatest thing ever. I don't have to tell him that it's got cabbage in it. It's all right. He loves it. We, in these days, most of us don't have time to fuss over what we're cooking and what we're shopping for. It needs to be boom, boom, in, out, get her done. But I refuse to give up my table with the kids. And also that's where I entertain my friends, because I had a career and that was how I paid the bills. And so the way I entertained was at my kitchen table with the kids. But the result of that was in addition to lifelong friends, women mostly, but not entirely, who sat at my kitchen table. The other good thing was my kids have all come back to me and said, Ma, I think I've got the equivalent of an MBA sitting at the table with you all those years. Because they listen, they absorb it, and you teach them to participate in a way that, is suitable and comfortable for your guests and for them. And they learned how to listen. They learned how to set the table. They learned how to pass the food. They learned how to ask people if they needed some more water. And we can laugh about this, but I meet more than a few, and I've been a school board member. Yes, that was me. You meet children who've never eaten with utensils, or who have no idea. Oh, yes. And I live in an agricultural community, but I don't think that makes it distinctive to this kind of community. You meet kids who've never really learned how to wash clothes or load a dishwasher or any of that stuff. And so what's the point in sending somebody to Cornell if they don't know how to do a load of clothes in the laundromat?
I will tell you a funny story. I did teach my kids that, by the time they got to high school, they were doing their own laundry. So my son goes to college freshman year and he's off. He's done. I really don't hear from him. And I'm like, okay, I'm cutting the tie. This is his time. He'll call when he's ready. So he calls, I don't know, like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I go to bed really early. So of course I'm panicked. mom hasn't heard in
As
2
we
weeks.
do.
I'm like, oh, what happened? So he's like, Mom, I know you told me that I can't wash my reds and my whites together, but can I dry them together? That's my favorite story ever.
I love it. But that's what you need to hear from your kids. That's great.
Exactly. But they need to, so they are calling for things like that. But even cooking things, like I gave my kids when they left, I made a cookbook for them of all the family recipes.
Sweet.
And it's really one of the greatest things I've done. I really recommend that for people like us who have a lot of family time at the table.
Which
And
is
they
all
love
my
it.
book is, by the way. It's my recipes.
It's just fantastic. So your kids, that's your family, but they'll call me and say, "Oh, I'm making the salmon in here. What do I do for this?" So they're reading it. They're excited to keep on the family traditions, and it's special. These books are special. So I'm really glad.
How old are your kids now, Christina?
27 and 25.
Okay, because boy, when they're in their late 30s, 40s, all of a sudden you become so brilliant.
Oh, I can't wait. Although my son did give me a little plaque at Christmas a year or two ago that said, OMG, Mom really was right about everything.
Good for you. Okay.
Finally.
Right. Well, and there's so much we want to talk about, so much chick stuff. But I don't want to forget to tell you, because I don't think I did, that I fell 4 weeks ago today and broke my femur.
Oh,
and it was a garden incident. Yes, I garden kind of violently, and I've now paid a price for it. It was a vine that was trying to get my azalea, and I was pulling on it too hard, and I wound up on the gravel on my butt. And hauled away by ambulance and the whole thing. And I now have titanium in my leg and a pin and this and that. But here is the great news. Everyone who helped me, and I'm with Kaiser, and I don't have enough good stuff to say about them. They are an amazing organization here in California and some other places around the country. Wonderful people, and they were great with me. But everyone, the nurses, the floor people, the surgeon, all said, we don't typically see women your age in your kind of shape. So we are happy to tell you that you're going to recover completely. Your bone will heal. You'll be back on your feet. No worries. And then the surgeon called me the next day, and he said, I was up early this morning. I couldn't really sleep. I realized that I needed to tell you something else that I don't tell most of my patients, because you're a little bit different that way. You are the kind of woman who just pushes way too hard, aren't you? Like, well, huh?
Got me where I am today.
Yeah. He said, please don't. He said, please don't put too much weight on it. Be patient.
Oh, yeah.
It will heal. And so I am here today to tell all y'all, women particularly, but not exclusively, that what used to be a death sentence. I mean, they would say, okay, you got 6 months to live. You're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. It hurt big time, still does a little bit. It's inconvenient, but it's ended up being more of a retreat for me than anything, because I have a great excuse not to do very much.
But you're right. Staying healthy, eating well, and staying healthy, and balance is a really big thing as we age too, doing the exercise that keep you, because the falls are one of the biggest problems.
They're huge. But here's another specific thing. I've been working out for, years, but in the last year, I've been doing resistance training, weight training. And it's interesting. It's fun. It's very rewarding. It's hard. It's a thing that most of us women have not done. I mean, a lot of us have. You younger sweeties have, but us more crusty chicks, that was never a part of we were the sort of jazzercise generation,
I was just going to say that,
the Jane Fonda thing. But weight training is brilliant, not because you will rebuild your bones, which you will add bone strength to a small degree, but it was explained to me And I went, oh, yeah, it makes sense. That it's actually building the muscle that you need to protect your bones.
Right.
So if you have a fall in your garden, wrestling with a vine, you've got the muscle that will let you rebound. And I am so grateful that I knew that. And then I did that work. So I want you.
And I want everybody to know too, and you might do it, but you don't have to go to a gym and pump iron, with all these people. I do a very simple weight workout when I walk. I walk 3 miles and I'm up to 4 and 5 pound weights. And I have a whole little workout routine that I do. And I have good muscle tone because of that. So you can use laundry detergent containers if you still have those, or anything that's heavy to lift. Fill up water, something with water, and lift it.
The big bonus working out for me was that I was doing it with pals. I have a group of women that are fantastic because we hooked up at the gym. I mean, some of us kind of knew each other, but this was a little local gym. We have a wonderful trainer, Tiago. I'm going to mention him. And now every one of those women has come and sat with me as I recovered. But this is what we need to do as women too. We need to support each other. We need to have our little covens, our groups, our gatherings, because that's where the wisdom is exchanged. And as good as it is to work out at home, and yes, I'll be doing it too, you don't get any more wisdom from just working with your weights at home. The wisdom comes from being with your buddies.
Yeah, I love that. So, Lynne, as we wrap up, you so many great nuggets and things to think about and live by. What? We do have to wrap up. I know it always goes so quickly. What piece of advice would you give your 48-year-old self? And I know you were pretty good with your health and the way you ate, but if you could take what you know now at 79 and tell your 40-year-old something, what would you tell her?
That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. I think the thing that comes to my mind first and that I do want to share is it's going to get better. It's going to get so much better. Don't worry about it. You're working your ass off. It's hard right now. It does pay off. In your 40s, your late 40s, you're at top turbine output. You're doing so much, too much. But your kids do grow up or your job does mature. And our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with men, particularly in my case, improves. When I was 40, I met this cutie who was 29, and against all possible odds, he didn't have any kids. I had 3 kids, dogs, cats, crazy career, mortgage, everything. We married, and we're still married. I'm so glad.
I love that. Wow.
But it's not always what you think. The package may be very different than you think.
Oh, wow. Well, Lynne, thank you. Everyone listening and watching, you heard what an inspiring episode. Share this with your friends. The best is yet to come. I'm really excited for all of us, what's going to happen in our 60s and our 70s. And I know you're going to just keep plowing through into your 80s and 90s. So, Lynne, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's where I'm going, 120.
I love
it. Stay involved, ladies. Vote. Come on. We need you.
Yeah, there's power. We are very powerful women our age. So we're banding together. Yes. So thank you, Lynne.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us. women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.